If you've ever worked for a larger company, then you might have had an opportunity to be part of a special leadership development training. And even if you haven't, if you've ever walked through a bookstore, then it's pretty easy to spot the aisle full of the latest and greatest and what business leaders say you absolutely must do. But if you've had those experiences, you also know how quickly some of those lessons go by the wayside or get replaced by the newest and the latest and greatest. How many of those business books, for example, end up in the bargain section within a year or two of when they first get published? It can be hard to find those leadership principles that are more than a fad, that really stand the test of time. But there is an exception to that. There is one true leader whose example, whose leadership, whose process is not just timeless, it's eternal. Let's talk more about him on this next episode of the True Leader Podcast. Welcome to the second episode of the True Leader Podcast. My name is Dan Hager, and I get to talk today to my friend and mentor and just an all-around true leader, Bryn White. Great to see you again, Bryn.
Great to be together every time.
So I'm really excited for this conversation because I have spent a lot of my education and a lot of my career in different forms of management and leadership training. Right. So whether it was my undergraduate business school, my graduate school in health administration, I've read textbooks, I've read articles, whether it's been through the last 15, 20 years of my career in different corporations, been a part of different programs, had different recognition. And while I've got to participate in all of that, you've not only been through that part of it, but you have actually had a lot of experience actively thinking about and designing those sorts of programs for how to teach people to be leaders, right?
Yes, and I've done it many times for different kinds of groups, universities, large corporations, senior executives, and all this. But more importantly, probably young people and people in churches and leaders in churches, future leaders.
Yeah.
Most importantly, yeah.
So across all of those experiences that you've had, and you've had experience working as a consultant for different places, you've had experience working as a human resources director for large corporations. What have you found as being the difference between the programs that really work versus the ones that don't? Because I think we've all had the experiences where we've clicked on to an e-learning and we've listened to some information and we've answered some questions, or we got invited to a retreat, or we went to a conference, and maybe there's a nice little momentary buzz, but in terms of actually helping us grow or motivating change, there might not be much shelf life to it. So I imagine that's been something that you've had to navigate and work with. So what's been some of what you've learned about what really works for teaching people, especially teaching people to lead, versus what doesn't?
Okay, so the two different words there, teaching and training, are key. And the one that it really looks the closest like is training. There's an ongoing learning process that happens with human beings. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that learning process is not well facilitated. Mm. All kinds of stuff gets in the way. There are all kinds of distractions. The thought process does not get well facilitated in terms of people not just accumulating knowledge, but actually becoming who they're supposed to become as human beings. This character formation thing. There's all kinds of formation going on with human beings, including linguistic, which we could talk about forever. But there's all kinds of formation happening. Character formation is the most important.
Yeah.
And that is especially true for leaders. The interesting thing is that in most corporations, most universities, other places, the focus ends up not being on character, but rather on skill sets.
Yeah.
And they kind of go to toolboxes,
Yeah.
where you learn this set of skills and this set of skills, and then you hone them. You
Right.
hone them. But they're really pretty mechanical.
Yeah.
The whole thing is pretty mechanical. The thing about human beings is they're pretty organic. And even the people who are super analytical and very cerebral, the reality is their brain is designed in a pretty organic way. You're actually supposed to have a certain kind of creativity. There's supposed to be a certain freshness in your thinking, a certain clarity to your thinking, a certain anchoring to some of your key ideas and your key truths. You know? There's supposed to be a whole set of things that's going on there that's really to benefit the human being. And so sometimes there's a lot of stuff you can do, but a bunch of other stuff gets in the way of kind of the most important stuff that needs to happen with human beings. Okay, so some of this takes me back to when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
Okay? You had to talk about formative times. I really think that I have gone back through my adult life and sorted out some things in terms of what has really been useful and important and consistently valuable to dealing with human beings. And I'm telling you, the people who had the greatest positive impact on me, they were spiritual leaders. They were men who, they weren't perfect, but they were men who had been set on fire spiritually by God. God had gotten their attention in a most personal and beautiful way. And they were walking day to day as much like Jesus as they could. And they were speaking the words of Jesus to give wisdom to other people as much as they could. So I actually sort back through all this stuff that, I had to do so many leadership seminars.
Yeah.
I had to do every kind of thing. I was certified in about 100 different master training and management programs and leadership programs of every sort you can imagine, every personality thing, organizational thing. I went to a lot of stuff, and I got all kinds of training, and I facilitated all kinds of stuff. But in the end, some of that was really kind of not that useful.
Yeah.
But the truth of God, if I applied it myself, in the quietness of my daily living, brought a certain fruit, a certain peace, a certain shaping, ongoing shaping, that I couldn't find anywhere else.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get that from an event. I'm not going to get that from, some kind of a program or a seminar. It's an ongoing thing. And this is the way God actually set things up.
So I think at this point, it might be helpful to give a little bit of an example for everybody of what we're talking about. Because there might be some people that are hearing us talk right now, and they're wondering, like, well, what does the Bible have to do with leadership? Like, what does Jesus have to do with leadership? Because maybe they're sort of in that place where we've sort of had that indoctrination where, like, well, leadership is one thing and there's a certain way to do it, but Jesus, that's something else, that's religion.
Right.
So I thought it might be helpful if we look at a passage from the Gospel of John, chapter 10.
Yeah, absolutely.
And listen to a few verses of what Jesus speaks. And just look for some of that truth about what he shows us, about what true leadership looks like.
Right.
And then maybe spend the rest of our time giving some examples of, like, this is what applying that might look like. I tell you the truth. Anyone who sneaks over the wall of a sheepfold, rather than going through the gate, must surely be a thief and a robber. But the one who enters through the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep recognize his voice and come to him. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. After he has gathered his own flock, he walks ahead of them, and they follow him because they know his voice. They won't follow a stranger. They will run from him because they don't know his voice. Those who heard Jesus use this illustration didn't understand what he meant, so he explained it to them. I tell you the truth. I am the gate for the sheep. All who came before me were thieves and robbers, but the true sheep did not listen to them. Yes, I am the gate. Those who come in through me will be saved. They will come and go freely and will find good pastures. The thief's purpose is to steal and kill and destroy. My purpose is to give them a rich and satisfying life. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd sacrifices his life for the sheep. A hired hand will run when he sees a wolf coming. He will abandon the sheep because they don't belong to him and he isn't their shepherd. And so the wolf attacks them and scatters the flock. The hired hand runs away because he's working only for the money and doesn't really care about the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my own sheep and they know me, just as my Father knows me and I know the Father. So I sacrifice my life for the sheep. I have other sheep too that are not in this sheepfold. I must bring them also. They will listen to my voice, and there will be one flock with one shepherd. The Father loves me because I sacrifice my life so I may take it back again. No one can take my life from me. I sacrifice it voluntarily, for I have the authority to lay it down when I want to, and also to take it up again. For this is what my Father has commanded. So I love here right off the bat that Jesus embodies this difference between teaching and training.
Yeah.
Because he grabs their attention with these figures of speech.
Right.
But when they're struggling with processing that, he gets really specific.
Right.
And what are some things here that just stand out to you that help just bolster your confidence in Jesus as that leader that he shows us from what he says here in this passage, Brent?
Okay, well, there's a whole set of things, but I just have to say that this reminds me so much of the Ezekiel passage you started off with.
Yeah, from our previous episode back in Ezekiel 34. That's right.
It also reminds me of David when he was a shepherd and he was writing Psalm 23.
So these figures of speech are very common to the people that Jesus is speaking to, right? This is a point of reference that they'd have from biblical knowledge and everyday life.
Right, and the whole shepherding thing actually has to do with a leading that is caring. That's what it means.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean a bunch of other stuff. It is a genuine, caring leading that's going on. And it has to do a lot with the heart, with what's going on inside the heart of God to begin with, but then the heart of God's people. And one of the things about this, and I know we kind of need to wrap up, but I actually think that this kind of shepherd discussion really lends itself well to us focusing on training human beings.
Yeah.
In maybe a very non-traditional way.
Yeah.
To pay attention to the shepherd, to pay attention, in essence, to the Father, to the creator of all things. And that's what Jesus was really ended up talking about in John 10. He's actually making sure that people realize that he is the good shepherd.
Yeah.
And they need to listen to him. And when he speaks, he is speaking the truth.
Yeah.
Every time he says truly, truly, verily, verily, he's saying, I'm telling you the truth.
Yeah.
A bunch of people in the world, not going to tell you the truth. They got other stuff that they're trying to spin up. I'm telling you the truth because I am the source of you. I am the source of your life, of your thinking, of everything about you. And so in order to have a basis for operating well in this life, you really have to go back to the source. And it just happens that God is the shepherd. The Lord is the shepherd. And he wants to teach us things by leading us. Not putting us in a chair in a classroom and, or getting tough on us or, he's actually wanting to walk us through life in the most meaningful way possible. So you get all the meaning you can out of life. There's a bunch of people who don't know that.
Yeah.
They think this is something else. Oh, I got to go sit in a church building somewhere and do some dumb set of things. No, you actually need to pay attention to the one who is holding you in life,
Yeah.
permitting you to breathe, who is keeping your brain sparking and operating and all your body systems operating in a good way constantly.
Yeah.
All the time when you're awake. Well, I think people need to think about this a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
It goes back to a very personal relationship with the one who thought you up and who put you here. And then, as Ezekiel was saying,
Yeah.
he makes the commitment to come and to lead us himself. And Jesus Christ shows up on the earth, and he starts by being called God with us.
Yeah.
You know, he starts talking about things in a way where the Father and I are one. He starts talking about God as his Father, and he is trying to do the will of the Father at all times. He actually is telling Satan face to face, I do what the Father says.
Yeah.
Why? Because all human beings were designed for this father-son relationship. And God has a way of training us by following his son Jesus, training us to have the most meaningful life possible by developing the most Christ-like character possible, that of a faithful son, so that we can actually have joy in life. We can have peace in life. We can actually experience the most positive version of life that is possible, and that ends up being eternal. Right.
So as we move to wrap up, then it might be helpful for anybody that's following along with us today. I'd like to try to take then your challenge, having heard this, having you framed it that way. I'll just for everybody try to model, okay, so what would it look like for me personally to hear what Jesus is saying here and work through that? And so I think about shepherds, and I think I go back to what you had mentioned earlier, where it's that heart of the shepherd and that character that matters.
Right.
So if so much of what we usually do is tools, shepherds have tools. It's part of that 23rd Psalm that David wrote, your rod and your staff. But the power of the tools comes from the heart that's using them.
Right, and mostly for comforting and protecting.
So then what I'm hearing from Jesus here is that contrast, that there might be people who take on the mantle of shepherd, but depending on that motivation, they may or may not be using the tools in a way that actually cares about people. So as I think about me as a leader, if I'm a leader in a business setting, if I am learning from Jesus how to lead and not like the others, then part of what I need to see from him is a way to actually genuinely care about the people that I'm leading, that they are being provided for, that they are having opportunities to grow, that I don't just see them as an input for production, that I don't just see them as disposable, just there for me to use up. If I am taking my leadership notes from Jesus and not from someone else, if I'm learning these tools, but having that heart and that character to apply it, then I want everybody that I encounter at work to be able to experience abundance. Like I want them to have abundance in purpose, in meaning, in connection. And so knowing that from Jesus, that's what I need to apply. Or as I think about Jesus here and his differentiating between being, I've loved how you've applied this for me in the past, as a hireling versus someone that's genuinely a shepherd. So if I'm a leader in church, if I have a hireling mentality, then I'm just going to sort of punch the clock, put in my hours, preach my lessons, have my meetings, get through my agendas. But there's going to be a difference in approaching spiritual care for people that way versus truly having that heart to try to understand where are people hurting, what do people need, how do they need to grow,
Right.
not just wanting to give people what they want, but to really open the door so that they have the opportunity to come in and rest and heal and be fed.
Yeah.
And so then to bring it all the way around to what you were mentioning at first, because there might be some people that are listening to this that aren't followers of Jesus.
Oh,
so
yeah.
they started tuning in because you got all this consulting experience, and now we're doing all this Jesus talk, and that's part of so I think for me personally, wrestling with that, I think that's where that last piece about him laying down his life and taking it up again is so important, because there were a lot of Jewish rabbis 2,000 years ago. And we're not looking to them for character formation. The only reason anybody still talks about Jesus is because of the documented historical fact that Jesus died and that Jesus rose. And it's on that basis that he, as a true leader, sacrificially gave everything for our good.
Mm-hmm.
And then that God exalted him through that sacrifice. He lifted him up by raising him from the dead. That's why we can't find a tomb with Jesus' bones in it, because that body got up alive and is now reigning. When you or I would uphold that Jesus is the one we need to look to for character, Jesus is the one that's going to give us that shape, Jesus is going to be the one that teaches us to actually care about our churches, care about our families, care about our soccer teams, care about our business teams. The reason he's worthy of that is because he's the one that really knows, the one that designed all of us. He's the one that really knows what we need, that doesn't just see us as inputs, that doesn't just see us as widgets, that's not just trying to squeeze us dry and get what they want out of us, and then if we're gone, they're going to replace us with somebody else.
Yeah.
He's the one that actually sees us and cares about us so much that he gave everything. And we can believe that that's legitimate because he's not dead. Right. Even though he lived and died 2,000 years ago.
Right. Well, I have to also say, I'm just enough of a skeptic that I have to say that a lot of my conviction about who Jesus is and how he operates is not only historical, but is intuitive.
Yeah.
There is actually an intuitive set of things, and I just want to kind of finish out with this thing about the shepherd has to do with the character thing. He is modeling something. A lot of times people don't think about this. You're going to do it with sheep, But for human beings who are being shepherded and led, you are more a model than you think. And if you do not come from a place of genuine character, of a character that is godly in some way, has spiritual grounding in some way, there's no way you're going to be consistent. It's impossible. Some of the worst leaders in the world they're terrible because they're inconsistent. But there's an intuitive aspect to. Later on, we'll talk about the 9 characteristics of Jesus.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the 9 key daily actions of Jesus. It just happens that intuitively, there are people who don't know anything about the Bible who actually realize those are good human characteristics.
Yeah.
That Jesus modeled. And those 9 specific actions he had every day, they're simple. They're understandable, and they're doable. And he did those 9 things because of his character. And those 9 things changed everything forever. 9 things in a daily pattern. So it's not just a religion in a box.
Yeah.
It's what the human spirit, the human mind actually needs more than anything else. It needs to get back to its source. It needs to get plugged into the source of what is true, to the true one, and begin the process of simplifying, clarifying, seeing things for how they really are, inside you, outside you. And when that starts happening, the reality of that happening, because we're talking about actions, when that starts happening, really almost every human being will be convinced in the experiencing of it. They will be convinced. It's that intuitive. So you can facilitate the training, but it's a learning process. This thing of becoming a faithful human being, walking with the God who put you here. This is the thing that is the basis for all effective leadership. It's the basis. And everything else is just a bunch of noise.
So, Bryn, that sounds like an absolutely wonderful invitation for anybody that is waiting to hear what these 9 things are, to be able to experience some of that abundance that Jesus offered, that you have experienced and articulated, and many of us have been blessed with, to to follow, to subscribe through whatever way they're getting us, whether this is social media, whether this is a podcast app, so that whenever our next discussion, which is going to start to unpack some of those characteristics of Jesus and some of those ways that we could start applying it, so that they get to start their day hearing it. So please accept that invitation. And I, for one, can't wait for that conversation. Thank you so much, Bryn.
Yep, I'm excited. God bless you.